Welcome to Void Realities, a place where the night becomes gentle, where questions drift like stars, and where your restless mind can soften into calm. Tonight, we journey into the desert skies of Arizona to revisit one of the most mysterious and unforgettable moments in modern history. It is known as the Phoenix Lights UFO sighting, a night when thousands of people looked up together and saw something they could not explain. Silent lights moving slowly across the horizon, etching themselves into memory and into mystery. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and allow the story to carry you into stillness. Because sometimes the greatest way to fall asleep is by wandering gently through the unknown. The Phoenix Lights UFO sighting. The night stretches over the desert like an endless canvas, a sheet of velvet embroidered with quiet sparks of light. You lie back and let your eyes adjust, noticing how the longer you look, the more stars appear. Some shimmer faintly, like candle flames in the distance, while others burn with steady brightness, older than memory itself. In this stillness, the desert feels alive with silence, as if even the sand is listening. You notice how your vision changes in the dark. At first, the world seemed empty, as though the sky was sparse and bare, but now your eyes have learned the rhythm of the night. This is called dark adaptation, a gentle shift in which the cells of your retina become more sensitive to faint light. Rod cells, tucked inside the back of your eye, begin to take over from cones, allowing you to see in shades of silver and shadow. What once looked invisible becomes clear, not by the stars changing, but by your body opening itself to them. And then, a new glow arrives. Not a flicker, not a twinkle, but a steady presence, moving slowly and silently across the horizon. It feels out of place, as if someone had painted a stroke of fire across the sky. Your breath stills. There is no sound, no roar of engines, only the quiet persistence of light. You are not alone in watching. On that night in 1997, thousands of people across Arizona looked up and saw something similar. A pattern of lights stretched across the desert sky, gliding in unison. Some described them as orbs, others as part of a massive triangular craft. The reports varied, but the wonder was the same. Something had crossed the night that did not fit neatly into memory or explanation. As you imagine this, you notice how your mind begins its own work. The eye receives only photons, tiny packets of light, bouncing from a source into your gaze. But it is your brain that builds the story of what those photons mean. Shapes emerge, patterns form, and narratives take root. When you see a line of lights, your mind wants to connect them, to draw outlines and fill in the shadows. A triangle, a craft, a skyborne presence. Your sight is not just a recording. It is an act of creation. You realize how delicate this balance is. To see is to translate the universe into meaning, and yet meaning is shaped by memory, by emotion, by the stories you have already heard. If you grew up with tales of distant visitors, you might feel awe or fear. If you learned the language of airplanes and flares, you might lean toward an earthly cause. Both are real experiences, even if they tell different truths. The desert has always been a place of vision. Long before city lights dimmed the heavens, people gathered beneath skies like these to wonder about their place in the cosmos. Ancient astronomers watched the stars not only as points of light, but as guides, patterns, and signs. They mapped the heavens, told stories of gods and animals, and allowed the night sky to shape their understanding of life itself. Tonight, you join them in that tradition. Gazing upward, feeling both small and vast, tethered to Earth, yet drawn toward the unknown. The glow above the mountains lingers in your imagination. Was it simply a trick of light? A formation of aircraft, interpreted differently by tired eyes? Or was it a reminder that there are still mysteries too large to fold into easy explanations? Science teaches patience here. It teaches you that to wonder is not to be fooled, but to remain open. The mind that asks questions stays awake, even as the body drifts toward rest. The desert air cools as the night deepens, and you feel your breath slowing, matching the rhythm of the earth around you. The lights in your memory dim, leaving only a trace of silence and possibility. The sky seems even wider now, as if it has absorbed the question you carry. You close your eyes for a moment, and the darkness is filled with after-images. Faint impressions of brightness, shadows of what you have seen. This is how the eye remembers, holding echoes of light even after the source has vanished. It feels like a lesson, whispered gently, that what lingers in the mind can be as powerful as what lingers in the sky. And so the chapter ends, not with certainty, but with a quiet invitation. If light can stir such wonder, what happens when thousands of people look up together, drawn by the same mystery in the same night? It is evening in Arizona, March of 1997. The desert air is cool, carrying the scent of creosote and dust, the horizon stretching endlessly in every direction. Families step outside for fresh air, couples walk along quiet streets, children play in backyards. It begins as an ordinary night, the kind where the stars slowly appear one by one, reminding you how vast and timeless the sky can be. And then, across that ordinary sky, something extraordinary drifts into view. At first, it is just a glow, a small point that seems brighter than the rest. But it does not twinkle like a star. It moves, slow, deliberate, almost graceful. Soon another glow joins it, and then another, until a line of lights forms, stretching like a silent procession across the heavens. The formation is steady, unhurried, and above all, quiet. In Phoenix, people step onto their porches and gaze upward. In Prescott, families gather in driveways, pointing and whispering. Along highways, cars pull to the shoulder as drivers and passengers alike stop to watch. Reports later suggest that as many as 10,000 people may have seen the same phenomenon. This is what makes that night unforgettable. Not one witness, not a handful of onlookers, but entire communities united by wonder. You imagine yourself among them, standing in the desert night, surrounded by strangers whose faces are tilted to the same horizon. There is comfort in that togetherness. The mystery does not belong to one person. It belongs to all who raise their eyes. The lights seem to bind people together, like threads sewn across the fabric of the dark. As you watch, you notice how slowly the lights move. They do not dart like meteors or streak like falling stars. Instead, they glide with an almost unearthly calm. For many, this is what makes the memory so haunting, the absence of sound. No rumble of engines, no thunder of aircraft, only silence. Silence so deep that it seems to magnify the glow itself. Yet each person sees slightly differently. To some, the lights appear connected, as if part of an enormous triangular craft stretching wider than any known airplane. To others, they are simply individual orbs, moving together in a loose and fluid formation. Memory, shaped by distance and perspective, turns one event into many stories. Later, the reports spread quickly. Phone calls pour into local television stations. Newspapers print front-page accounts. Neighbors compare notes, each certain that what they saw was clear and unmistakable. Even the governor of Arizona, Fife Symington, acknowledges the event. At first with humor, but later with sincerity, admitting that he too had seen something unusual. Science reminds you that when many people witness the same event, the experience takes on layers beyond simple observation. Human memory is not a camera. It is a storyteller. Each person brings their own history, their own expectations, their own imagination. What unites them is not the exact detail, but the collective sense of awe. This is called a mass sighting, when an event imprints itself not only on individuals, but on the shared memory of a community. You reflect on how rare this is. Most nights pass quietly, each person absorbed in private thoughts beneath the same stars. But here, for a brief moment, thousands of people share one sky, one story, one question. It is as if the desert itself decided to hold up a mirror, showing humans the vastness above and the unity below. As the lights continue across the horizon, some people feel fear, others wonder, and still others feel only curiosity. Whatever the emotion, the memory becomes permanent. Years later, people will recall where they stood, who was beside them, and how the silence felt heavier than the desert air. The Phoenix Lights remain powerful, not simply because of what was seen, but because of who was watching. A grandmother in her garden, a teenager on a bicycle, a pilot in the sky, a child holding a parent's hand, all of them witnessing together. The event is not just about the lights, it is about the human act of looking up together at something bigger than themselves. The night deepens and the lights eventually fade, vanishing into distance or darkness. Some witnesses linger long after, scanning the sky for more. Others return indoors, carrying with them a sense of quiet unease or quiet wonder. What is remembered most is not the end, but the stillness that followed. You stand there too, at least in imagination, feeling the afterglow of a moment that stitched together thousands of lives. And as you drift into reflection, one thought lingers gently. How is it that so many people, looking at the same lights, could see so many different truths? You stand in the desert night, recalling how so many people once looked up together. They saw the same lights, but their memories diverged, their stories branching into countless shapes. To understand why, you begin with something closer, something you carry every moment of your life: your own eyes. The eye is not a camera, though it often seems that way. A camera gathers light, focuses it through a lens, and captures an image on film or a sensor. The eye does something similar, but it is more alive, more restless. At its heart, your eye is a dark chamber lined with delicate tissue called the retina, a living canvas where light becomes sensation. When photons, those tiny packets of light, enter your eye, they pass through the cornea, bend at the lens, and finally strike the retina. There, they meet photoreceptors, rod cells and cone cells, which transform the energy into electrical signals. Rods are sensitive to dim light, cones to color and detail. In the daytime, cones fill your world with richness and clarity. At night, rods take over, trading color for sensitivity, allowing you to see even when the world grows faint. But here is the secret. What you see is never just what your eye receives. The retina sends its messages into the optic nerve, and from there, into your brain. And the brain does not simply display an image. It interprets, it fills gaps, it smooths the edges, it writes meaning. What you see is a collaboration between light and memory, photons and imagination. Think of a constellation. Stars are scattered points of light, but your mind draws lines between them, shaping them into animals, gods, and stories. You do this instinctively, seeking patterns in chaos. In the same way, when a row of lights moves across the desert sky, your brain connects them. A triangle, perhaps, a solid craft, something vast and unified. Even if the lights are separate, your perception ties them together. Scientists call this Gestalt perception, the tendency of the human mind to see wholes rather than fragments. You crave coherence because coherence feels safe, it feels real. The Phoenix Lights might have been individual flares or planes in formation, yet to many they became a single entity, more magnificent than the sum of its parts. Your eyes also carry their own limits. In dim conditions, your rods are active, but they cannot sense color. The world becomes a tapestry of grays and silvers, and shapes blur. Distance becomes uncertain, size ambiguous. When you look at something bright against a dark background, a flare, a planet, a strange glow, your eye may misjudge how far it is, or how large. What you perceive is vivid, but not exact. And then there is memory. Your eye holds an image for only a fraction of a second. The rest is memory filling in. Each time you recall what you saw, the story shifts slightly, reshaped by your mind's need for coherence. This is why one person remembers 5 lights, another 7, another a massive triangle. Each saw truly, but each remembered differently. You realize that to see is also to believe, but belief is never fixed. It bends, like light itself, through the lens of experience. If you are a pilot, you may interpret the lights as aircraft. If you are a dreamer, perhaps as visitors from another world. If you are a skeptic, perhaps as nothing more than illusion. The same photons fall into each eye, but the meaning blossoms differently in each mind. The human eye is miraculous, not because it records perfectly, but because it weaves the imperfect into experience. You carry not only the image of the world, but also the story of the world. A story stitched together from light, shadow, and memory. And so you return, in thought, to that night in Arizona. Thousands of eyes lifted, thousands of minds weaving, thousands of stories born. Not all the same, but all connected by wonder. The sky became not just a mystery above, but a mirror of the mysteries within. How you see, how you remember, how you give meaning. You begin to sense that vision alone cannot explain everything. Even with science, even with rods and cones and memory, the experience of a shared sight is more than biology. What happens inside the eye is only the beginning. What happens between people, in the telling, in the shaping of belief, is something else entirely. And it is here that the question rises softly, like another light on the horizon. If perception is so fragile, how does science sift truth from story, explanation from imagination? The memory of light lingers. You have seen how the eye bends the world into meaning, how perception is shaped by both biology and belief. Now you turn toward another companion of human curiosity, science, with its patient hunger for explanation. Where wonder gathers, skepticism follows, not to erase the mystery, but to test it, to see if the story holds. On that March night when thousands in Arizona lifted their gaze, the questions arrived as swiftly as the lights themselves. What were they? Where did they come from? Could something ordinary, flares, planes, satellites, appear extraordinary when stretched across the desert sky? Science begins here, not with certainty, but with careful doubt. Reports soon poured into local newsrooms and investigators began their work. The first wave of explanations pointed to known technologies. Could it have been a squadron of military aircraft flying in formation? The U.S. Air Force often trained in Arizona skies. Some suggested a 10 warthogs, slow-moving jets capable of dropping illumination flares. Others thought perhaps a refueling operation where planes link in midair, lights shining against the night. To the trained eye, such exercises were familiar. To the untrained, perhaps astonishing. A second explanation focused on flares themselves. Days after the sighting, military officials announced that National Guard pilots had dropped high-intensity flares over a practice range southwest of Phoenix. These flares, suspended on parachutes, would drift slowly downward, glowing against the dark, sometimes appearing to hover. As they burned out, they would fade one by one, much like the lights many remembered. Skepticism found comfort in this. The pieces seemed to fit. Flares explained the silence, the glow, the slow disappearance. For many scientists, this was the simplest answer. And in science, simplicity often carries weight. It is called Occam's razor, the principle that When faced with competing explanations, the one with the fewest assumptions is often best. And yet, even as explanations circulated, questions clung to the edges. Witnesses who stood miles apart reported the same triangular shape, moving as a solid object. Pilots swore they saw something vast, blotting out the stars as it passed overhead. Others described two separate events. First, a massive craft. Later, the flares. Could memory have blended them into one? Or did the official story smooth over something stranger? Science, when it is honest, admits its boundaries. Evidence must be testable, repeatable, measurable. But what of fleeting lights, witnessed in the span of minutes and never repeated in the same form? How do you gather data from something that left only memory in its wake? Here, science and mystery stand side by side, neither able to dismiss the other completely. Skeptics emphasize how easily the eye can be misled. Distance in the night sky is notoriously difficult to judge. A flare dozens of miles away can appear to hover just above the horizon. A line of planes, when seen head-on, may resemble a single shape. The brain's need for patterns can transform scattered points into a unified craft. What feels certain to the witness may be fragile under analysis. Believers, however, point to the sheer number of witnesses. Could so many people all be mistaken? Mass sightings, they argue, carry their own weight. Even if perception bends, the collective experience demands respect. When a grandmother, a teenager, a doctor, and a pilot all describe something extraordinary, it is tempting to look beyond the mundane. And so the debate continues, not only in Arizona, but in the human heart. Science holds tightly to caution, reminding you that the world is full of natural explanations waiting to be uncovered. But imagination holds tightly to possibility, whispering that the desert sky might still harbor the unknown. What matters most, perhaps, is not choosing one side, but recognizing the dialogue between them. Skepticism keeps wonder from becoming fantasy. Wonder keeps skepticism from becoming silence. Together, they form a rhythm, a pendulum swinging between certainty and mystery. You sit quietly with this thought. Science does not erase the lights, it reframes them. Even if they were flares, the experience of thousands watching together is no less real. Even if planes cross the sky, the awe of that night still lingers like heat in the sand. Explanation does not undo meaning. It only offers one more layer, one more lens through which to see. The desert night deepens, and with it, your awareness that stories multiply, shaped by both fact and feeling. Some will always cling to the official reports, content with military exercises as the answer. Others will carry the memory of something larger, stranger, unaccounted for. And between them lies the quiet truth that humans are not only seekers of answers, but keepers of questions. As you close your eyes, you feel the paradox settle gently within you. Skepticism brings clarity, but it cannot dissolve the pull of the unknown. And so you wonder, if explanations can divide us, what does it mean when thousands believe together, sharing not only a sky, but a story? The desert remembers not only the lights themselves, but the people who saw them. Thousands, scattered across towns and highways, gathered beneath the same sky. Some stood alone in backyards, others in crowds along streets. Yet each became part of a collective witness. And here, something subtle occurs. When many eyes see together, belief takes on a different weight. Psychologists call this the power of social proof, the tendency of humans to trust what others also affirm. If you doubt your own perception, the certainty of your neighbor steadies you. When 10 people say they saw a triangle, the 11th feels less alone in their memory. In moments like this, the line between private vision and shared conviction begins to blur. Memory, too, bends beneath the weight of community. You may recall faintly what you saw, perhaps 5 lights, perhaps 6. But when a friend insists there were 7, your mind reshapes its own record to match. This is not dishonesty, but a feature of how memory works. Each act of recall is not a replay, but a reconstruction, woven again from fragments and influenced by the voices around you. This is why eyewitness testimony, though vivid, is fragile. In the calm of reflection, you imagine how easily details shift. One person remembers the lights in a perfect line, another recalls them in a V shape. As stories are told and retold, the differences smooth into consensus. What began as many perceptions slowly fuses into a single tale, stronger and more convincing than any individual account. Psychologists describe this as collective memory, the weaving together of many minds into a shared story. It is not simply what happened, but what a community chooses to remember. Collective memory gives meaning, even if details change along the way. It is how cultures pass down myths, how families hold on to their past, how entire cities come to define themselves by a single night in history. And yet, there is another side to this. When many gather, suggestion can ripple through the crowd like wind across sand. If one voice whispers, "It is a triangle," others may echo it, and soon the shape becomes truth, even for those who were unsure. This is called conformity, the quiet pressure of agreement. In groups, humans often trade doubt for belonging, because to belong feels safer than to stand apart. But safety is not the only reason. Wonder is amplified when it is shared. To see something extraordinary alone can feel unsettling, but to see it with others transforms unease into awe. You look to the person beside you, eyes wide, and their expression mirrors your own. In that reflection, the experience deepens. The mystery is no longer yours alone to carry. It is held by many. This is why the Phoenix Lights endure in memory. The event was not simply about glowing objects in the sky. It was about the human response to them, the gathering of neighbors, the collective gasps, the conversations afterward. For one night, thousands of people shared a story so unusual that it became part of the identity of an entire state. Arizona, for a moment, became the desert of the unexplained. Science acknowledges this psychological power with caution. A mass sighting does not guarantee accuracy, but it does reveal the strength of belief. Belief, once rooted in community, becomes harder to shake, even when explanations are offered. Flares, planes, illusions, the memory of standing with others beneath that silent procession resists being erased. What matters is not only the lights themselves, but the feeling of being part of something larger than yourself. As you reflect, you realize that collective sightings reveal something profound about human nature. You do not see the world in isolation. You see it through the lens of relationships. The mind is not only an organ of perception, but also of connection. It seeks harmony with others, even in uncertainty. To witness together is to create meaning together. And so the night of March 1997 becomes more than a record of lights in the sky. It becomes a mirror of humanity's longing. To see, to belong, to share in wonder. Whether the lights were flares or something stranger, the psychology of mass sightings tells you this. Reality is shaped not only by what falls upon the eye, but also by what is held in the stories between people. The desert grows quiet again, the sky vast and unbroken. Yet the memory lingers, carried in voices that still recall it decades later. And as you drift in thought, you wonder, if stories can shape truth so powerfully, what happens when science tries to weigh them against silence? The desert is quiet again. The lights that once drifted across the sky are gone, swallowed by distance or darkness. Houses grow still, conversations end, and people return indoors, carrying with them fragments of memory. What remains is not the glow itself, but the silence after. Silence like a soft weight in the air, pressing gently, inviting reflection. It is in this silence that wonder takes root. Not the urgent kind that demands immediate answers, but the slower kind, the kind that lingers and deepens, like water seeping into sand. You feel it now, the space between knowing and not knowing, where questions live peacefully without needing resolution. Science has offered explanations. Flares, aircraft, illusions of distance and light. Each theory, tested against evidence, carries its own strength. Yet for many, the explanations feel incomplete, as though something essential escapes the net of reason. Perhaps this is not a failure of science, but a reminder of its nature. Science does not erase mystery. It reshapes it, giving you new questions to hold, new ways of looking. Think of how the eye works. You learned that it is not a perfect recorder, but a storyteller, weaving photons into meaning. In the same way, science is not a final answer, but a method of seeing. It sharpens, compares, doubts, and tests. Yet beyond its edges, there will always be more sky than we can measure, more silence than we can name. And in that silence, humans have always placed wonder. Ancient people told stories of gods and spirits moving among the stars. Mariners looked upward to find direction across the oceans. Poets traced meaning in constellations. The Phoenix Lights are part of this long tradition. Not because they must be otherworldly, but because they stirred the same timeless feeling, awe at what lies beyond. Wonder, you realize, is not fragile. It does not vanish when explanations arrive. You can know that the stars are burning suns, billions of miles away, and still feel reverence at their shimmer. You can learn that a rainbow is light bending through droplets, and still pause at its beauty. Explanation and wonder are not enemies. They are companions, walking together beneath the same sky. Perhaps the same is true of the Phoenix Lights. If they were flares, their beauty remains. If they were planes, their strangeness still united thousands of people. And if they were something more, something not yet explained, then they remind us that mystery still lives among us, even in an age of satellites and science. The truth, whatever it is, does not diminish the wonder. You sit with this thought, breathing slowly, letting the desert night wash over you. The silence feels full, not empty, as though holding countless possibilities. The memory of lights is like an afterimage on the retina, faint, fading, yet still there when you close your eyes. In the end, perhaps this is what matters most. Not what the lights were, but what they left behind in the minds and hearts of those who saw them. Psychologists might call it collective memory. Scientists might call it misperception. Historians might call it folklore. But you, lying here beneath the stars, might call it simply wonder. The kind of wonder that keeps you awake yet soothes you at the same time, softening the edges of thought until they blur into dream. And so the desert becomes a teacher. It teaches that silence is not emptiness, but space for meaning. It teaches that even fleeting lights can echo for decades. It teaches that to live between explanation and mystery is not a burden, but a gift. A place where imagination and reason meet, where certainty loosens its grip and peace can enter. The Phoenix Lights may never be fully explained. Perhaps they do not need to be. Perhaps their true meaning is not in their origin, but in their effect. Thousands of people, remembering the night they looked up together, saw something vast and felt connected to the sky, to each other, to the endless horizon of possibility. You close your eyes, letting the silence deepen, letting wonder settle gently in your body. And as you drift, the thought comes quietly, like a final light moving across the sky. Perhaps the greatest mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to remind you that the universe is still larger than your understanding and always will be. The desert night lies quiet, vast and unbroken. The lights are gone, yet their memory drifts softly, like the echo of a song you can no longer hear but still feel. You imagine yourself lying back, the earth cool beneath you, the stars steady above. The mystery is not pressing now, it is calming. It reminds you that not everything in life must be solved to bring peace. Science has shown you how eyes see, how memory bends, how explanations rise and fall. Yet here, in this final stillness, you realize that meaning often lives not in certainty, but in the quiet space between. The Phoenix Lights may never fully yield their truth, but perhaps that is their gift. They leave you resting in possibility, in wonder without urgency. The desert teaches you this. Silence is not emptiness. It is space for breath, for reflection, for letting go. The sky above remains vast and unknowable, but your body softens as you accept that not every question demands an answer tonight. Some can wait. Some can simply be carried, like stars carried across the heavens. As you breathe slowly, you feel your thoughts grow lighter, loosening their grip. The story of the lights, of vision and memory and belief, settles within you like sand settling after wind. You're part of the same rhythm, questioning, imagining, remembering. And in this rhythm, there is calm. The lights fade, but the wonder stays. And so, as your eyelids grow heavy, you allow yourself to rest in the same silence the desert holds, wide, timeless, and filled with quiet meaning.